Tonight's topic is, what is the Bible? Where the heavens meet, where the infinite meets the finite. Now, the Bible, I don't know what the word Bible actually means, but that's not the point of our discussion. The word for Bible is called the Torah. Okay? And so we're going to explain what is the Torah, the deeper meaning of it, and we'll actually start with some basic ideas of what the Torah means, and then we'll get sort of some mystical concepts of what the Torah means. There was a survey done a number of years ago in the top 10 religions. Amongst the top 10, Judaism was in the top 10, as well as a religion called Kabbalah. Now that's very strange. That's Jews getting two for the price of one. Oops, can't say that. Kabbalah and Judaism are not two separate things. They're actually one and the same. The author of the seminal work of Kabbalah, the Zohar, is Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, who is the same Rabbi Shimon who appears throughout the Talmud. The Kabbalistic understanding is not any different than Jewish knowledge and information. So what is the difference? The difference is that when I tell you something, you could learn it on many different levels. And we'll explain to you why that is. That's because Torah can be understood on many, many different levels, and therefore there are different levels of understanding it. It's what's called the Pardes. Pardes is an acronym for the orchard, the mystical orchard. And the mystical orchard has an acronym of the word Pardes, which is Pei. Pei means the pshat, the basic, simple level of understanding. So when I learn the Bible, the Torah, I learn it on the basic level first. But then there's a deeper level, which is called the Pardes, the Remez, the Reish, the Remez. Remez is the hint. That's the metaphoric, deeper level that you can't actually get in the simple action-reaction, but it's a hinted level. Then there's another level called the Drush. The Drush is now what our sages tell us, and we have a tradition that God told Moses on what is linked up to what. Okay? That includes things like gematrias. Gematrias are numerical values for everything in the Torah that links up. So numerically also everything lines up. And then the fourth level is called, of the Pardes, of the mystical orchard, is called the Sod. Pardes, last letter is Sod, Samach, for Sod, the secrets. That's the mystical Kabbalistic level. This is all one construct. But what happens is that when a child learns the story of Genesis, he reads it like a child. When a 95-year-old Kabbalist reads the same words, he's reading it on a completely different level. It's the same words, but what's happening is he is accessing the deeper mystical levels. It's one system, though. So much so as a one system, you have to realize a very important thing. If you go and you learn the mystical levels and you don't bring it down to the practical levels, that's an illusion. That's the way the great Kabbalist, the Arizal, says. It's to learn the mystical levels without the basic levels is to be a soul without a body. And to learn the basic levels of the mystical levels, a body without a soul. A person needs to have the whole system. So I'm going to try to explain a little bit tonight what the Torah is, how we understand the Torah from a basic level to a deeper level. We're going to see a very fascinating mystical Agada, a mystical text that's going to explain a story how Moses got the Torah, and we'll learn some deep lessons from that. So let's start. Torah. What does the word Torah literally mean? So for those who have a basic Hebrew understanding, the word Torah is like the word Morah. Morah is your instructor. Right? That's what we call a teacher, the Morah. The Torah is the instruction manual. On the most simple level, the Torah is the instruction manual on how to live your life. It's a very famous story. It was a rabbi. It was Israel Zalman Meltzer, and he came to Israel in the early years, and at that time, when somebody made Aliyah, they came to Israel, they gave him a very basic things. They gave him like a little hard bed, and they gave him a pot and a pan, and they gave him this one little Bunsen burner, like this little old camping burners. And on the Bunsen burner, there was a booklet that was attached to the burner. And so the rabbi asked the people at the Jewish agency who were giving him this product, he says, what is this paper, this booklet on this burner? And they said, Rabbi, it's the instruction manual. And he said, this proves the Torah is true. You get a little bit too excited here. What does that mean? It's a booklet. It's a manual. He said, no, this proves the Torah is true. I said, what are you talking about? I'll tell you. You give me this little cheap old Bunsen burner, this one burner stove, and you got a 15-page booklet on how to use it. Explain to me how you think it's possible that a human being could be created with body and soul, this complex world, and not be given an instruction manual how to live his life? And if you think about it, it's a fascinating insight. If for a created being, if God created people, as we say, he would be cruel, so to speak, cruel, not to give an instruction booklet. There's no way. There's no way a person can navigate their life correctly because it's so complex. You have to understand everything about the human emotions, the psyche, the spiritual dimensions, everything. And without the secrets on how to live our lives, it's not possible to do it successfully. And if you don't believe me, just go look at modern society, and you'll see that it's correct. So, the first level of Torah is the basic instruction manual on how to live our lives. Now, that's true, but there's something much, much deeper. Okay? And to explain the deeper level of what the Torah really is, I want to share with you an Agada. This Agada appears in the tractate Shabbat, and it's the story of when Moshe goes up to Mount Sinai to get the Torah. Now, the way this works is the Jews heard the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai, and then Moses ascends to the mountain to receive the explanation of everything and come down with 40 days later with the tablets. Now, just understand, though he went physically up to the mountain, also means he entered into a state of prophecy where he was able to experience God on the top of the mountain and receive transmission from God on the entire understanding of the Torah. Now, when he goes up, the Talmud tells us this mystical story. It says the angels, the spiritual beings, complained. They complained to God. And they said, "My Yulud Isha, what is this person born, flesh and blood, born from a woman here up in the heavens? What's he doing here?" And God said, he's here to get the Torah. The angel said, no, this precious Torah, this jewel that precedes creation, no, don't give it to him. He'll mess it up. Rather, keep the Torah with us. That's what they say. Now, so God says to Moshe in this prophetic experience, he says, "Okay, Moshe, answer them. Tell them why you should have the Torah." To which Moshe gets concerned and he says, I can't. I'm afraid they'll burn me up with their fiery breath. What does that mean? Does that mean angels don't brush their teeth? What? They have fiery breath? Moshe's afraid the angel's breath. Give him a mint. I mean, what is exactly the problem, Moshe? But he's afraid they're going to burn him up with his fiery breath. Okay, great. So God says, all right, you're afraid they'll burn you with a fiery breath. Here's the solution. Hold on to my throne of glory and answer them. Tell them why you should have the Torah. That's also very weird. What is it, like the anti-kryptonite? What does it mean, God's throne of glory? And he holds on the throne of glory and he answers them. And now that he's holding on the throne of glory, he can give an answer. Okay, it's strange. We need to understand this. As we said before, this is the way to uncover these deep mystical teachings. But Moshe goes and he holds on the throne of glory and he answers the angels. He says to them, what does it say in the Torah? What is it in the Ten Commandments? It says, I am your God that took you out of Egypt, out of slavery. Were you in Egypt? Were you slaves? No. It says in the Torah, have no other gods. Do you live amongst idolaters? You have other gods? No. It says, don't take my name in vain. Do you go and you go and you're in business dealings that you might swear falsely? No. Do you work? You have to keep the Sabbath? No. You have parents that you have to honor? No. The Torah is not relevant to you. It says at that point, the angel said, wow, he's right. And they all became friends of Moses, and they said, yes, he's right. God, give him the Torah, give the people the Torah, they should have it, and not us. They became his friends, they gave him gifts. And the Talmud discusses that in great detail. Now, if you think about this story, it's beyond strange. Okay, let's try to understand. What are some of the problems here? First problem is that, as we mentioned before, Moses is afraid of their fiery breath. What does that mean? And then afterwards, he holds on to the throne of glory, and now he can give him an answer. What does that mean? But there's a more fundamental problem here if you think about it. The angels, what they do is they want the Torah. Presumably, they know it's in the Torah, right? They are spiritual beings. They want the Torah. They say the special, precious Torah, the news of the secrets that are hidden there, and you're going to give it to man. So obviously, they know what's in it. So if they know what's in it, and they know it's not relevant to them because they don't have parents to honor, and they don't keep the Sabbath because they don't work. So why do they want the Torah? It makes no sense. The whole thing makes no sense. They want the Torah. Moshe says to them, well, it's not relevant to you. They say, oh, yeah, you're right. You didn't know that before? Obviously, you should have known what the Torah was. You wanted it so badly, and you didn't realize it wasn't for you? So let's understand this. This is very deep. The sages tell us that what the angels wanted, what the malachim, the spiritual forces wanted, was they wanted the mystical aspects of the Torah, called it the Torah's nistar, the hidden, secret, deeper meanings of the Torah. That's what they wanted. Yes, they understood they can't go and do this commandment, that commandment, but the experience of connecting and understanding the Torah, the spiritual root, the mystical secrets of how God created the world and runs the world and everything that's created in it, that's contained in the Torah. That's what they wanted. So now God says to Moshe, they want to keep a Torah. They think that's not for you. You're a person, you're going to mess it up. So answer them and tell them why you should have a Torah, not them. Now, we said Moshe says, I'm afraid they'll burn with their fiery breath. What does that mean? Moshe is saying, listen, they are completely spiritual entities. That's what the fiery breath represents. The breath of a person is, as we know, the soul is breathed into man, as it says in the Holy Zohar, the Kabbalah, it says, whoever breathes in to something, breathes in from themselves. God breathed life into us. The breath of life is the connection that we have. The angels, their breath is fiery. It's all spiritual. Okay? Fire represents a dynamic entity, energy. They're all ruchnius. They're all spirituality. They're all holy. There's no physicality in it. And Moshe says, I'm afraid they'll burn me up with their fiery breath, means that they are spiritual entities. I, on the other hand, have this spiritual component and I have a physical component. I'm afraid that on their logic, they're more correct. because they are more holy in that sense. So God says, hold the throne of glory and respond. What does that mean? Got to explain what this whole throne of glory thing means in the first place, because we've heard people misusing these deep concepts. The throne of glory, for our purposes, what it represents is so to speak. Imagine when the king wants to relate to his country. So there's a place where he reveals himself, that he sits on his throne of glory, means he sits on his throne, and a king's very considered a regular throne, but on his throne means that now he is in a state where he is now experiencing, relating to the needs of the subjects in a stable, established way. That's what sitting represents. So what happens is a throne of glory represents the idea that when God's presence comes into this world to relate to the rest of the creation, right? There's a dimension that's all divinity, and then God created what's called nifradim, entities that were created and that come out and that are separate entities. This is a source of great mystical discussion, but the idea is that we're not God. We have a divine spark in us. Yes, that's true. But we are called nifradim, separate created beings. The throne represents the transition point from godliness to creating an entity that is going to be created beings. The sages tell us that the souls of the righteous come from beneath the throne of glory. What does that mean? That means that the highest thing in the created world is the soul of man. That's the highest thing. Moses, you're nervous the angels will burn you up with their fiery breath? Here's the solution. Look at your root. Take hold of the throne of glory, because your soul is actually higher than the angels. You come from the very highest place of the created beings, is the soul of man. Hold that throne of glory means attach to your root, see where you come from, and then answer them if you're afraid of their fiery breath. Moshe holds the throne of glory. Now what does he say? He says, listen, what does it say in the Torah? It says all these physical commandments, which you guys can't do. Here's the depth of Moshe answering them. He's saying, listen, you don't understand. The whole dimension of the expression of Torah, of this divine wisdom, is that it can be taken from the highest level, the soul of man, which is even higher than the angels, and it can be brought down into the physical world. It can be transmitted into this dimension. And that's what the angels say, wow, you're right. See, we wanted the spiritual knowledge, the, so to speak, the Kabbalistic level. But Moshe, you have that, you connect with that level, and you now go ahead and have the ability to bring it out in the physical. And that is the deepest statement of being God-like, that we can go and have the free will choice to go and say we are in Tselem Elokim, in the image of God, who can only choose freely. We also can go and we're a mixture of body and soul, and we can take the deepest concepts and make them real in the physical world. And the angels realize that, yes, that's the truth. They're not the purpose of creation. They're spiritual laws that function. The purpose of the creation is to have a being that in his root is the highest thing, but he comes down into the lowest physical place and he can express it. So when you look at Torah, you got to look at it differently. From the angel's perspective, it is pure truth connection. And this is what it says in the Zohar, in the seminal work in Kabbalah. It says, Kodesh Baruch Hu V'Raisa, God and His Torah are one. It's, so to speak, the thoughts of God. And that's why there's a very beautiful teaching of one of the great Hasidic masters, the Baal Tanya. He gave it an analogy. He said, listen, if you go to a king and the king gives you a hug, and he's wearing his robes, and you know you're hugging the king, does it make a difference if he's wearing 5 robes or 6 robes or 8 robes? It makes no difference because the king is inside the robes. He says the Torah is God's thoughts, so to speak. And in the deeper sense, God and his Torah are one. So if you learn the basic level, the pshat, the simple level, you are hugging the king with more layers of his robes. But it's still a king inside the robes. So the way to learn the Torah, even in the most basic level, a person's learning Talmud, and they say, okay, your bull gored my bull. What's the law? So what you're really saying is, what does Hashem say? What does God say? The way to understand this is because you're connecting to the source. And that's really what Torah is. What Torah is connecting to the infinite source itself. That's why people always make a mistake. I remember when I arrived in Israel years ago, I was like, Torah. I think Torah is a book. Okay, a book is very nice. There are many books of greatness. That's not what the Torah is. The Torah is infinity that's put into the finite. That's not possible. That's not possible unless you're God. And what Hashem did, what God did was he took the infinite, God's experience, the essence, the thought, so to speak, the revelation God wanted to reveal to us, he took that and he put it into a state that we could actually read. And therefore, when you read it on one level, you're experiencing it on this level. But in the deeper levels, you're connecting to the source. Now, this is what explains a very amazing teaching that it says. It's a mystical teaching. Nachmanides says it. Many other commentaries quote this. It says that when you read the Torah, what happens is you're reading the Bible, the Torah, and you're reading it in terms of words and sentences and stories, but there's a deeper level that the Torah is written on. And that level is like this. If you knew how to break up the words differently, right? In other words, let's say you have a sentence, in the beginning, Bereshit bara Elokim, Hashem created in the beginning of his creation. Those are 3 words, but if you know how to break the words up in a different combination of the letters, the same structure, but breaking them up differently, the Torah would read differently. It would actually be all running names of God. What that means is that, yes, it's happening on many, many different levels. On one level, the Torah itself is godliness. You come into your reality, you read the words, you read the stories, you read the commandments, but everything is contained in there. That's actually how the commentaries explain the last 8 verses of the Torah. The last 8 verses of the Torah are a problem to explain how they were written. Why? Because in the last 8 verses it says that Moshe died. Now, Moses is going to give the Torah completely to the Jews, right? Just to get our structure, how it works is when Moses went up to the mountain, he got all the 613 commandments, all the depth of understanding, but the stories that were still going to unfold, And what happened was, as he was writing the 5 books down of Moses, what happened was that God would speak to him from the tabernacle, from the Old Moed, and dictate to him the commandments he already taught him, plus the stories that God gave him that he created into the expression of Torah. So Moses writes it down, and he writes down the parchment as they're going along, and at the end of the 40 years, he gives them the sum total of what he had learned in Mount Sinai, the 600 commandments, but as being dictated by God in the desert through the tabernacle. So the last 8 verses of the Torah says, and Moshe died. Now, that's a problem. Because he can't write Moshe died if he's alive. That wouldn't be true. And Joshua couldn't finish it for him because Moshe had to give a complete Torah. So how do you explain this? So the Talmud says that Moshe wrote it b'dema. Dema. And then Joshua sort of completed it. And what does dema mean? The simple meaning of dema means tears. So the way they understand it at one level of the Talmudic teaching is Moshe wrote it with tears, like not permanent ink, whatever. So he didn't write; he died, and then Joshua came in, and then he wrote it in permanent ink. That's the simple way to read the Talmud. But there's a much deeper teaching of what happened. The word dema also means to be mixed up, and so the deeper meaning is that Moshe wrote the last 8 verses in a mixed up sequence. The words and letters were all there, but they weren't broken up as the words and story of Moshe died. How were they broken up? They were broken up under this higher level of revelation. They were broken up on the mystical level of the running letters, words of God's name. And when Yeshua looked at it then, he was able to break it up into the words that said, and Moshe died, and the final 8 verses of the Torah. That's what the Vilna Gaon says to explain the depth of what was happening here. The Torah is happening on every single level. It's not a book. It's infinity that's put into the finite. And that's why you could never finish it. And the first people who learn the Torah see the endless depth. It's just unbelievable. How everything could matches in terms of the numerical values of the words that they're connected with. How every letter is written this way with the crown that teaches you this teaching. And why the 7 letters have crowns on them, and they have 3 crowns on them, and what that means. Every single aspect of the Torah has the endless depth. And when a person goes